Hello and welcome to this virtual stakeholder workshop for the KZN Film Commission research titled Film as a Catalyst for Economic Growth at a Municipal Level, with a specific case study of the Ugu District Municipality. In terms of the outline of today's session, we're first going to present a brief introduction to the project. We're then going to go into the key findings of the research completed to date, and then we're going to complete 4 short working sessions. The first one will focus on comments, inputs, and gaps from the research to date. And then we're going to look at the impacts that filming has on the Ugu district, the challenges and constraints with filming in the district, and recommendations in order to improve the impact that filming has on the district municipality. Just to present the background and objectives quick, the purpose of the study is to determine whether filming can be an economic catalyst at a local government level, with a specific focus on the Ugu District Municipality. Obviously, impact of film, we're trying to determine whether employment and jobs have been created as a result of filming, if there's been local businesses and enterprises that have benefited from filming activities, if there's been any skills transfer programs that have happened, and any other socioeconomic benefits that might have accrued to local communities. In terms of the objectives of the workshop, we firstly want to present the key findings of the research in order to identify and plug any gaps. We want to identify the impacts that filming has had on the Ugu district, current challenges and constraints to filming in the area, as well as identifying potential recommendations that can assist to improve and increase the impact that filming has on local economies. In terms of the approach of this workshop, please continue to listen to this narrated presentation video. It'll provide some context to the project and the research conducted to date. Listen to the instructions as to when the video should be paused. Follow the Google Form link that was emailed out to you, which will take you to the Google Form page where your answers to each of the questions can be inserted. And if there's anything that's unclear or confusing, feel free to pause the video and give me a call on the details provided. Okay, so let's move on to the key findings of the research to date. Just before we continue, it's important to define what we mean filming. Filming includes shooting commercial motion pictures, so films, television shows and programs, commercials and student films. This also includes documentaries, videos made for the internet, as well as corporate videos, promotional videos, filming of sporting and other events. So it really is an all-encompassing definition of film. Just having a quick look at the film industry value chain. The value chain of any film production goes from conceptualization, where the idea is kind of initially brainstormed, through to development, where scriptwriters and producers and broadcasters and financiers are brought on board, through to pre-production, where the concept's further developed and storyboarding occurs, then to the actual production, where actual filming, directing, acting occurs. And this is the area of the value chain which has the highest potential to make an impact on the local economy, given that a lot of local activities such as accommodation, security, transport has a strong input into production. In terms of post-production, it refers to editing and audio and effects, which at this stage is quite limited within the Ugu area, through to circulation, delivery, and audience consumption. So what we want to do is that we want to improve the impact through expanding the value chain. So developing the film industry, ensuring that there's more pre-production services and skills in the area, more post-production skills, will allow us to really extend the impact that a film has on the Ugu district. It's important to understand the skills or services that the film industry has. In primary activities, it's really the core functions that allow for a film or film content to be produced. So from screenwriters to producers to financiers to broadcasters, those are the real kind of primary activities that allow for film activity to get to the point where it's broadcast. Secondary activities relate to all the support services, but direct film related support services such as the crew and camera people and distributors and post-production and effects and script writers, sound. So those are all the real core film related activities. And then looking at tertiary activities, these are essentially what we term in the research local enterprises. in that it's the accommodation facilities, agents, transport, florists, booking services, laundry services. What you'll notice is that in more developed film industries, there are a lot more primary and secondary activities to support film activity. But as soon as you kind of go to more less developed areas, it's really the tertiary activities in which there is a lot more support for films. So for example, in Ugu, there is a much smaller film industry relatively to, for example, Joburg and Cape Town, which have much bigger secondary activities. And so the impact of film is largely going to be around the tertiary activity side, where film producers or people producing any film content require transport and accommodation for the cast and crew and catering and security. So just keep these different types of services or skills in the back of your mind, because I think it's quite important for the rest of the context of this presentation. It's just important to highlight the value of the South African and KZN film industry. As you can see, it's quite a significant contributor to both GDP and employment at a national level, less so at a provincial level, but it's still quite a significant industry. With a lot of potential to grow. But I think what's important there is the fact that the film industry has a multiplier of 2.81, which is relatively high compared to most other sectors, which means that for every R1 spent, an additional R1.81 is generated. In terms of some of the types of impacts, one of the more significant impacts is on sectors such as tourism and transport, as well as catering and hospitality industries. So that's been particularly noticeable within the Ugu area, where accommodation facilities and other support services in the hospitality sector and in the tourism sector have benefited quite a lot from films, especially some of the bigger international productions that have come to the area. There's also the impact on the job learning. It's quite an accessible sector for low-skilled individuals and students. And there's also a relatively low cost associated with creating employment due to the fact that there's less infrastructure and capital investment required than other sectors in order to create a job. Finally, technological advancements have definitely lowered the barriers to entry. So technology is becoming more accessible. People are even shooting on cell phones. Audiences are able to consume products within seconds. So essentially, due to these advancements, filming and film content is able to have a much greater impact and much quicker than it used to before. Just focusing in on one of the case studies that was researched within KZN, the series Uzalo was shot in the KwaMashu area. A very small investment by the municipality and commitment to support this TV series resulted in a direct impact on local businesses of 200 million rand. It also created 365 direct jobs and 270 indirect jobs. So that just highlights the importance that a little bit of municipal support can have and the impact that can be generated from that. During the research, we've identified that a number of major international productions have taken place within Ugu. These include Tarzan, Blue Crush 2, Jungle Book, and The Last Face, all facilitated by Cape Town-based Moonlighting Films, and also a bunch of local productions which cover feature films, short films, documentaries, reality TV shows, corporate promotional videos, and filming of events. So it is quite clear that there is a fair amount of film activity happening. It's quite promising that a number of international productions keep coming to the area, and I think that it's important to keep this in mind in how the impact of these productions and also all of these more local productions can be enhanced to increase the impact that film has on the area. Some of the reasons that film content producers said that they chose Ugu as a destination, firstly, was because they were either based in Ugu or the subject or focus of their production was in Ugu. But then what was raised a number of times were that Ugu has a lot of good locations. They have access to services such as accommodation, and it's good value for money. So I think those last three are quite important to consider because those are really the true value that the area can provide, specifically around good locations, because we do understand that the Ugu District has a variety of different locations ranging from beaches to forests to natural resources such as Orabi Gorge, to farmlands, to game reserves, and to kind of traditional rural settings. So there's a variety of different locations, and I think that, along with the strong tourism industry, provides a lot of potential for film to grow. I think it's also just important to note some of the activities and skills that are missing with Ugu. So during the surveys conducted, it was raised that there are skills missing, such as producers and directors, cinematographers, agents, editors and visual effects and animators, sound production, and choreography and stunts. What's important here is that obviously the greater number of skills and activities that we can develop and contain within the Ugu area means that there can be a greater impact every time filmed content is produced, because, for example, local directors are used and local cinematographers, and once content is developed, local editors and visual effects specialists and animators and sound producers can continue to work on those productions within the Ugu area and generate additional revenue, local business and employment. So some of the challenges that have been experienced when filming in Ugu relate to the lack of crew, inexperienced cast, funding support, safety, equipment, so hire of equipment, and lack of information on locations, and a lack of a central focal point for film. Just to unpack that last point a bit further, it has been raised by numerous stakeholders that there is no central focal point for film in the district. So South Coast Tourism had a film office that has been proposed and on the cards for years, but it currently is not a priority and it probably won't happen anytime soon. Essentially, filmmakers or producers don't know who to speak to about filming. There's no real central point where someone can come and get information about what locations are available, what cast and crew there are, where their cast and crew can stay, so what accommodation facilities there are, if there's information on permitting, who they speak to. So often filming actually occurs, and this goes without anyone noticing. It's happening on private land, so essentially we're not sure and we can't measure what's actually happening. On the other hand, from an institutional perspective, the KZN Film Commission does have a role as a provincial film body to support local government in increasing the impact of film. So the role of the Film Commission is important, and I think when we get to the recommendations, it'll be great if people can apply themselves and think about how the Film Commission can really assist local government in increasing the impact of film. They have produced some generic bylaws and some other film friendliness guidelines to assist local government, but we need to look at the implementation of these, and specifically local government input on this would be great. So please keep this in mind as we move into the working sessions. Okay, that brings us to the end of the presentation on the key findings to date. We're going to now move into the working sessions. Okay, so for working session 1, what we'd like everyone to do is provide us with comments or inputs or any suggestions on how we can improve the research that's been completed to date, so what we've just presented to you. Okay, in the second working session, we'd like some input into the impact that filming has had on the Ugu District. So we'd like you to provide us with as much information and detail on the types of impact that filming has had, and where possible provide examples and break this down to as low a level of detail as possible. So for example, you could say that film production A had an impact in that 200 cast and crew were accommodated in the Ugu district for 10 days. There were 100 extras that were sourced from a local community which were paid for 2 days, and they were provided with some basic training. And the cast were also, 10 of the cast were sent to a skills training program which allowed them to get special skills on specific areas that the film required. Okay, moving on to working session 3, what we'd like is to get input into the constraints and challenges that filmmakers or film content producers have when producing content in the Ugu area. If you are not a producer or filmmaker, It can be from your understanding of the challenges and constraints that are faced in the area. If you could also focus on some of the institutional challenges, so challenges between the different organizations that exist, and again, provide as many examples as possible. Okay, finally, we're on working session 4, and the focus on this section is on recommendations. So what we'd like you to do is please provide us with some recommendations that can assist make the impact that filming has on the Ugu District even greater. So try and think of the types of recommendations that filmmakers or producers of film content can do to try and increase the impact of film, what local and district municipalities can do to increase the impact, what provincial government can do via the KZN Film Commission, and also what local enterprises can do to try and ensure that the impact of film is enhanced in the area. Okay, so at this stage, I'd just like to ask everyone to please return to the email and click on the Google Form response sheet link that was shared with you and follow the instructions for working session 1 to 4. Again, thank you so much for being with us and assisting us in undertaking this workshop digitally. We really appreciate it, and if you have any further comments or queries, you're welcome to give me a call on the details provided or drop me an email. Thank you.